Let's get started with EJBs. In this, we will make a stateless session bean to demonstrate the ability of EJBs. We will deploy the EJB application in JBoss. JBoss is an application server which is freely available. Example of other application servers are WebSphere, WebLogic. So let's get started with EJBs and we will try to know more about it with an example. After opening Eclipse, we can go to File, New, in which we will get a variety of projects. Since we are dealing with EJB, we will make a EJB project. After selecting the same and clicking on the next button, we will get this, in which we can enter some name for the EJB. Just ensure the target runtime is JBoss. If this is not readily available, you can just click on New. After doing which, you will get a pop-up box inside which you can select the application server of your choice. If you click next, it will ask you the path where this application server is installed. On doing so, the runtime will be created. So after doing this and after giving the project a name, you can click on the finish button, in which case a project as shown in the screen will be created. We have returned the name of the project as Return Business Process. Shown is the folder structure of this EJB project, within which we have EJB module. Within the EJB module, we will write various EJB beans. Within this, we have created three different packages. The package com.qspawn.session.stateless consists of various interfaces and enterprise Java bean. The name of the bean is Arithmetic Processing. So let's open the same and know more about EJBs. Shown is the Arithmetic Processing class. This class implements the session bean and provides body to various methods which are to be implemented after implementing the session bean interface. The various methods are EJB activate and EJB passivate, EJB remove, set session context, as well as EJB create. Now these methods form the part of session beans and they are also known as lifecycle methods, since they will be invoked by the application server or EJB container while dealing with this bean. Within this, we also have one business method. The name of the business method is perform operation. It takes a string operation and two numbers. If the operation has to be addition, it returns the addition. On the other hand, if it's subtraction, it subtracts the number. In case any of this doesn't match, then it returns number 1. Each of the beans are associated with namely two types of interfaces. One is known as the home interface and other is known as the remote interface. By using these interfaces, we achieve the transparency of the end bean. That is, the end bean is directly not exposed, but it is exposed via the methods which we write within the remote interface. In order to get access to this, we make use of home interface. EJBs are deployed in EJB container, and since EJB container follows distributed system, and one of the major feature of any distributed system is naming in which each bean has to be given a unique name. The same thing is achieved in J2EE applications via using JNDI, which is now Java naming service. By using this JNDI, we will be able to assign a JNDI name to our bean, which can be later on referred as and when required. To actually get the reference of the bean, we have the home interface, which in our case is arithmetic home. It extends EJB home. It has a create method which returns us a remote interface reference. The create method can throw remote exception or create exception in case it is not able to reach the end server where the EJBs are located, or we get other create exceptions as and when applicable. The remote interfaces are used to expose the business functionalities provided by the EJBs. By segregating the interface and implementation, we have the advantage of changing the implementation without affecting the end client, since the end client always refers to the business functions exposed within the remote interface. A remote interface extends EJB object and it contains signatures of functions which are to be exposed by the bean. We expose the same perform operation function which we have within our bean, and it throws remote exception. Now whenever the user will invoke the create method, he will get a reference of this remote interface, and using this remote interface, which actually points to the EJB bean, the end client can invoke call on various functions exposed by it, and thus getting the advantage of distributed nature. These two interfaces, home interface and remote interface, ensures in keeping the EJB safe from end users modifications. Each EJB application further has some deployment descriptors. The common deployment descriptor is known as EJB jar.xml, while the specific deployment descriptor for that particular application server is also applicable. In our case, since we are making use of JBoss, we use the jboss.xml as well as the common EJB jar.xml as our deployment descriptor. Let's see what is present within this deployment descriptor. Shown is the EJB.jar.xml. It contains the EJB jar. Within EJB jar, we have enterprise beans as well as assembly descriptors. Within the enterprise beans, since we are dealing with session beans, we have the session tag. Each session tag consists of EJB name, a name or an intermediate name given to that particular EJB. Home refers to the home interface of this EJB. Remote refers to the remote interface of this EJB. And EJB class refers to the actual bean class, which contains the business logic. Session type indicates whether this is stateful or stateless bean. We are indicating this as stateless since we are making a stateless bean. And transaction type is container. Following this is an assembly descriptor, which is an optional attribute which contains a tag known as container transaction, within which we specify what all methods we want to expose further. Here we indicate we are going to expose all the methods which are present within arithmetic EJB, and we put the transaction attribute as required. Shown is the jboss.xml, within which again we have enterprise beans and a session tag. Within the session tag, I create a mapping between the JNDI name as well as the EJB name. The name of the EJB we get from our previous description about EJB jar.xml, while JNDI name is any name which we want to give to that particular application server to deploy this bean and refer this bean by this name. To deploy this application, we have to make a jar, which can be easily done by selecting the required project and exporting the same as EJB jar. So we can right click on the project and we can say export, and within export we can say EJB jar. Once we export the same and give it a name, the corresponding EJB .jar will be created, which can be then deployed. Shown is the JBoss folder. Within the JBoss folder, we have various folders corresponding to the client and server. We will be more concerned with server. Hence, within server we have the default package, within which further we have the deploy package, and it is within this deploy package we have to deploy our EJB jar. If you can see, we already have a jar deployed here with name return business process.jar, which contains our EJB entities as well as the deployment descriptors, which we saw. To start JBoss, we have to run the run.bat file, on doing which the JBoss will start and deploy our applications. Once deployed, we can access the same by putting the following URL in our web browser. If the JBoss is properly started, it will show this page. We can look whether our EJBs are properly deployed or not by first going to JMX console, which is present in the home page. Within this JMS console, we have various services provided to us by application server, and one of such service is known as JNDI view. So we'll click on the JNDI view, which will contain various methods which we can invoke to see the JNDI. So let's go to this list option, on invoking which we will be able to see the JNDI view in the form of a list. So within this list we can check whether our EJB bean has been deployed properly. As you can see, a variety of applications are deployed, and this is the EJB which we should be concerned with, the return business process.jar. Since it is within this project, we contain our EJBs. So the EJB module is properly deployed, and we will be also able to see our bean. If you see the arithmetic bean been deployed properly in global JNDI namespace. So after going to this view, we will be able to confirm whether our applications have been properly deployed. Once the application is deployed, we can have a client application invoking our EJB. To keep the things simple, for the first example, I create the client within the same project, within the package com.cuspon.client. Now to actually get the bean, we have to first refer to the JNDI, and by using JNDI name, we have to have a lookup through these names to get the beans of our choice. To do so, we have to make use of initial context object. To get this initial context object, we make use of a helper class which contains a static function named getInitialContext. So let's go to this helper.java class and see what is written within getInitialContext. Shown is the helper.java class within which we have the getInitialContext method. We create a properties object within which we put various properties like initial context factory, which refers to the naming context factory. Similarly, URL package prefixes, which will indicate the interfaces provided to us by JBoss, and the URL. Here I am putting localhost since the server is present in the same machine. If it is present in different machine, we can provide the IP address of the same. Now within this, after taking these properties, we make use of initial context object by passing these properties. In case some exception happens, like naming exception, in which case the name is not found, it will throw a exception. In any case, it returns a context object. So within the client code, we get this context object and check whether it is null. This will be null only in the case of exceptions. If it is not null, we can use the context object to look up the JNDI name. Since the JNDI name for our EJB was arithmetic, we are looking up the same by using that name. Lookup returns as an object of home. Hence we have to typecast it to proper type. We typecast it to arithmetic home, and once we get the home, we can invoke the create method. The create method returns us the reference of remote interface, that is arithmetic remote interface, and by using this interface we can invoke the business functions exposed. Since we expose the perform operation, we are exposing the same and invoking the same within this class. The arguments which I pass are addition and value 20 and 30 respectively. Finally, after getting the result, I display the same on the screen. Along with this, we put all this code within try catch, since we can get a variety of exceptions, naming from naming exception to remote exceptions, which denotes a name error or unable to reach the remote server exceptions respectively. So let's run this class and find out the corresponding output, since the EJB is already deployed within our JBoss. After executing this application, we get the following result, where we get the addition of 20 and 30 as 50. So internally, the remote interface has invoked the call on the actual EJB bean, and the result is visible to the end client. One thing which we can see from this example is the end client of EJB necessarily need not be web applications. Even a standalone application can invoke a call on EJB if the business process remains the same, thus enabling different types of clients to connect to the same EJBs. Next, let's deal with different types of session beans.